Hi, everybody, and welcome to COVID Chats. My guest today is comedian Akash Anand. Akash is a friend of mine from Rutgers University. During his time there, he founded the Rutgers Stand-Up Society. Our conversation today firmly centers around the impact that COVID-19 has had on comedy and comedians. There are moments in our discussion that may be too dark or morbid for some, so approach this episode with caution. Now, without further ado, here is episode 8 of COVID Chats. Hello, Akash, and welcome to COVID Chats, episode 7.
Yeah, boy.
Episode 8, actually. Episode 8,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no, very excited to do this with you, Ruben. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good chat. So, of course, I'll do, the intro beforehand. I'll shoot that afterwards about who you are and whatnot. But,
Cool.
for the audience who just can't wait, Akash, of course, is a comedian. That is how I met him during my time at Rutgers. You are running the Rutgers Stand-Up Society, correct?
Yes. It's currently run by Devin Hall.
Right, Devin, right. Devin from the Rutgers Comedy Club, something I was a part of during my years in undergrad. Now I feel so removed from it, just being
It's quick, isn't
being
it?
graduated a year.
Yeah.
Right, but yeah, of course it is still close, and we had that lovely Rutgers Comedy Club Zoom call this past weekend, and it was great to see old faces.
That was terrific because I just saw different people just like eating.
Yeah, I was eating some rice and beans, certainly. But I'm curious, for you, because you are, a real comedian. You were doing it much more than I was, and
I
I'm
wouldn't say
wondering,
that's
what's
true at all. I wouldn't say that's true at all.
what you want to say? You're a
I
real
mean,
comedian?
I mean, it's not a full-time living. Hopefully that is one day, but that's not, I'm not nowhere close to that. So
Sure. I mean, more real comedian in the sense that you were at least trying to do it as much as possible.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right. Whereas, I mean, during my limited time with it, it's it's been on and off here or there. It hasn't been something I've really been striving for. So that's what I mean in that sense. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
but true. I understand the clarification. But I'm wondering, so as someone who was pushing towards becoming a better comic, what's this been like? And how have you managed to sort of keep up the grind?
I mean, it's horrible in terms of, yeah, just really bad. I was talking to my friend Scott, who you're also familiar with, a couple days ago, and he was like, "I wonder how many comedians are going to kill themselves in these couple of months because
Yeah.
not only just like because they're depressed and they can't get up on stage, but like
Right.
there are a lot of people who are like aren't famous, but they're also not famous, but they really need the road work month to month. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Totally.
that's their like monthly income, and for the next couple of months, it's like a service industry. It's like a plumber. Like there are just no broken pipes, and you're not allowed to uh, do comedy per se. And I
Totally.
was seeing Mark Norman on his Instagram page. He's like making jokes about it, but it's probably fine for Mark Norman because he probably has enough money saved up for like the 3 months to not hurt him
He's big enough.
financially.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, like in their 30s, they're like kind of getting their start in terms of like getting consistent work. It's probably really tough for them, and it probably came out of nowhere. It's not a thing that people really like. I mean, you think about it conceptually, but you don't, especially if you're a creative person, you always think like, okay, I'm going to do these many mics. I'm going to do these many things. I'm going to get this much new material. I'm going to sell my hour or whatnot to these people. Maybe they'll want it. Maybe they won't. Like
Sure.
all those plans are out the window
Right.
essentially. And, yeah, but it's the same as like everyone's sort of going through it. But yeah,
Right.
it's
Right. Right.
can't stand up. Yeah.
True. I think there's that line for almost every industry where, like, if you were a veteran enough, if you had enough saved up, if you were far along enough, you could
Mhm.
survive this. But those who were sort of just reaching that cusp, they had that hand almost over the cliff. This
Yeah.
was that big gust of wind.
Right.
I mean, hopefully, we do see sort of an aid package of some sort or a rent relief, in cases of comedians in, places like New York City where the rent is so astronomical for the amount, for how hard they're working to try to
Okay,
get
you're
gigs.
bringing up a bit.
Oh, it's a little unstable. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm just, I hope we find a way to reach people so that great comedians don't, commit suicide and don't, take
Yeah.
this downturn. But
Yeah.
that will happen to some degree.
I think it's also a boon in some respects for a lot of stand-up acts because stand-up is a live performance medium. but it's not a very efficient way of building your brand per se. And I think a lot of people sort of have to sit with that notion is because you're doing stand up all the time and you're performing in front of a lot of people pretty consistently, especially if you live in New York City. So say you do 3 or 4 club sets, it's like, close to 300 people that hopefully you're making laugh on a like 8 to 15 second basis. So you feel as though you're getting stuff done, but
Mm,
those people aren't necessarily fans. They're not necessarily fans of your career. And they're not necessarily going to support you throughout times like these per
right.
se. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
with the fact that, yeah, you're very talented, you're very funny because you're able to make these people laugh, but how does that translate to writing movie scripts or writing television shows or writing for late night? Because those are very different skills. Even though there's,
Absolutely.
it's like painting versus like uh, 3D sculpturing. If that
Sure.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Well, I mean, now is a great time to sort of figure out how do you parlay your
Mhm.
comedic chops into some of these industries that will withstand this, or at least you would have been able to withstand it had you been in them and had some
Yeah.
jobs.
Podcasting is thriving right now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Podcasts are really, people are gaining, huge momentum because there's nothing to do. You know what I mean? And so you just seek out the most amount of podcasts you can just to get through the day. So there's a lot of people probably going viral and doing very well,
Yeah.
just on being comedic people that are not stand-up acts.
Right. Do you think? I mean, comedy, could you just record yourself sort of talking with the assumption that there's an audience there, or maybe even set up a couple computers and have sort of video screens coming in so you can see people's faces and hear a little feedback? Would that work to some degree, do you think? Have you thought about that, or is
Uh,
it just
no,
terrible?
yeah, a lot of people are doing that, but to me, that's not so much getting better at stand-up as much as it is I just need to get on stage. I feel like an itch. That's more like scratching your own back than actually like dealing with the rash. So the rash is you want to get better, you want your act to improve. Like chances are all the jokes you write in isolation and the jokes you do in front of Zoom mics or whatever, that's really hot in New York City right now. They're probably not, even if they're funny jokes, they're probably not functional um, in an actual stand-up room in the same way.
Mm,
Even if they're fine, they're probably just not good enough to make it into your act because they're just it's not stand-up in the same way because joke telling works on proximity. So if you've ever observed like a comedy room, um, chances are the people who are laughing the most are seated closer to the front
right.
because people who are even in the stress factory, there's not that much distance between the joke teller and the recipient,
Yeah.
but even in the back rows they're laughing, they're enjoying the show, but they're just not laughing audibly because
Right.
it's such a subconscious sociological thing to be like, okay, laugh when all these people are laughing.
Mm,
Well, if you're doing these Zoom conference calls and you're trying to stand up, like people are going to think you're funny, but you're not going to get the same, you're not going to get, it's not like a 1-to-1 ratio. That
sure.
makes sense. Like the
Yeah.
laugh
No. Yeah. Definitely.
translate correctly. But yeah, for me personally, I've just been watching a lot of stand up and writing as much as I can. I wonder how it, because I know Louis C.K. and Andrew Schultz are both supposed to tape their specials during this quarantine time, and now they have to delay that. So I wonder how that's going to influence them because they can't
Yeah.
not talk about stuff like this.
Right, right. You have to sort of find a way to work it into the material to some degree.
Yeah, I
So
remember
that,
Gerard Carmichael had to film his special 8 like a month after Trump got elected, and
mm,
you can't like just be like just do your act instead of
right, yeah,
palpable like feeling of like this guy gonna like address this. We paid money to see like a current, especially if you're like if you're like a thinking comedian, if you're like
right,
a comedian that like people are like, oh, he's an intellectual. They want
exactly.
you to address. So like
They
Schultz and
expect it.
CK, yeah,
Yes,
those
right.
guys, yeah.
So what was that like? I like Jared Carmichael. I haven't seen that special of his. What did you watch it? What did
Oh
he found
yeah,
a way to work it in? Did he make it all about Trump, or did he,
no,
find a line?
it was just a couple. I was reading interviews. I watched his specials. He has 2 specials, Love at the Store and 8, which are both on HBO. If you don't have HBO, you can just like find it online somewhere. It's a bit of a hassle, but they're really really good specials, I would say. And he was just sort of at 8. He was like, I read interviews with him, and he's basically like when he films a special, he's not like in a zone. Was like, oh, this is a special night. He tries to approach it like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do a set for an hour, and I'm gonna work out new jokes as well, which is really interesting um, from a comedian's point of view because normally when you tape something, you're like, oh, this is the final product. This is how it's always gonna be seen.
Right.
So there's no process here. This is just gonna be like me with really tight, sharpened, and I don't care if I'm in tune with the audience because it's for the people at home. And I
Right.
want to see the sharpest jokes.
Right. Polished as possible.
Yeah, but both his specials, there's a very loose feeling to it.
Mm.
He interacts with the audience. He starts bombing and he leaves it in. He like leaves those parts in, and I love it so much because it's so like, especially him. Like I love seeing Gerard Carmichael bomb. It's more enjoyable to me than watching him kill because I know he has some angle to get him out of it.
Mm.
The audience really hates him at certain points because he just thinks stuff like, "I don't think poor people should eat cereal." You know what I mean? It just like bombs, and I'm like, there's probably a tape of that. There's probably a way for him when he's taping that to like inject laughs and get stuff out of it, but
Right.
he doesn't do that. Back to your previous question, yeah, he just does it. There's like Trump material for like 5 minutes up top at 8, and then he just does his material.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's probably the way to. Maybe that'll be the way some comics handle it for such as Gerard, and Louis when they end up taping with their special.
yeah.
Whenever this is over. Do you think sort of like new kinds of humor will emerge from this quarantine? More, less so just like quarantine jokes, but like maybe a new style.
Ooh, that's really interesting. I don't know. I think there's something going on with the Zoom stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe you ever play that game, like that stand-up game you could play on your PC where you write jokes and there's an audience and you tell
No,
them virtually. I mean, it was
I was
horrible.
never as into it as you, but that's cool.
Yeah,
What's the game
I got
called?
to it, yeah, by my friend Scott. People would just write the N-word. That's all they would do because it was like a trolling sort of thing.
Okay.
But I'm interested to see how that evolves over time. Because I was watching I don't know if you game Half-Life Alex recently. It's this VR game that came out and it's really
Okay.
good. It's a really good VR shooter. But I wonder how stand-up will evolve once like virtual reality is like, or any like Zoom. This is just like virtual reality light. I wonder how it's gonna like be because there's going to be some sort of comedy entertainment for it. So I
Mm.
wonder if stand-up is going to factor in. Like, am I going to just be able to put a VR headset and watch Louis as if I was sitting right there? Because that's different than this. You know what I mean? That's intimate. That's like
Right.
my whole.
Right. That's
Um,
that's that's almost more so than being like. Well, maybe it's equivalent to being sort of the fan in the first row at the.
right. Yeah. That's like in some ways even more immersive.
Yeah, it might
'Cause Louis
probably
can,
more so.
you know what I mean? Get up and like go to the bathroom. And you can do that. But it's like everyone's gonna know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some new kind of humor, like an adaptive humor, because of the fact that Zoom can't quite replicate that in-person feel, and there's like a little bit of a lag, and then there's also just the human recognition that we're in different places. Like I feel like I don't know, maybe a less. I don't know what kind of humor it will be, but it'll be something that's like adaptive and a little broader. It might not hit as hard though as like it might not be quite as funny. But I feel like from great pain and like, awful times like this, sometimes the funniest things do come out. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's hard to say, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope like there's some because it's gonna go on for a while apparently. I was watching the news. We're not even at
You
the
gotta
re
be careful with the news.
yeah. Yeah, what do you think? How long do you think it's gonna last?
I mean, the news. Listen, the whole reason I started this program, COVID Chats, was to be sort of a break from the news and the facts and the
Okay.
figures, and focus on the personal stories and hear people's
Okay.
relationships with it, which is part of the reason I wanted to have you on to talk about sort of the comedian angle. I mean, I'm happy to also talk about the virus itself and how long we think it's going to go on and when will it end, solutions, whatnot. But
It's so exhausting though.
exactly. It's exhausting, and it overtaxes like your amygdala and your stress response, and it ends up actually weakening your immune system, making you more susceptible to the virus.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not about being sort of blissfully ignorant. Like we don't have to go all the way in that direction, but just like easing ourselves off of it because it's everywhere right now. The news is so pervasive.
Right.
Everything is we're being too many signals. So.
Yeah. Yeah, people are yeah, yeah, I saw that. My dad's been watching this for like hours and I don't know what he hopes to gain, but yeah,
Right,
every day
and
he's
people do
watching
it in the
news for
guise of
hours.
being informed, and you do want to be informed, but
It's good
yeah,
entertainment.
right,
Obviously.
absolutely, right.
It's
I mean,
really
that's
good like television. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's good.
absolutely,
I would rather watch this unfold in some ways than watch a lot of good stand-ups because it's just like more like especially like I watch a lot of my parents are watching a lot of Indian news to see how it hits India.
Yeah.
It's just like eight. It's like CNN's like pretty bad or something. It's like a 4-person split screen with people yelling at each other.
Yeah.
It's like 8 people and no one respects the anchor. You know what I mean?
They're all
People
just
are like,
yelling.
well, let me talk, and they keep doing it.
I know. Well,
It's,
that's what they've turned. They've gamified news. You know, they've
yeah, I
made it.
know.
They've
What's
made
that
it
guy's
into
name?
that.
The first guy to do it. His name was Zucker or something. Jeff Zucker. I might be
I think
getting
he's
it.
the founder of CNN. No.
No, or some guy who's brought into CNN. He was a
Yeah.
television producer, and he was like the first person to be like, no, this is entertainment. I forgot I used to know what his name was in like high school and stuff. But okay, it's not important. I don't know why we're on this tangent.
Jeff Zucker is the
I think it's probably completely incorrect the name I gave you.
president. He was the president of NBC Universal, CEO of NBC.
So yeah, I'm probably confusing it. Yeah.
But it's all good. So I guess we can sort of move from the comic side of things, comedian side of things, to you also told me that you were a public speaking coach. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, what's that been like? Were you doing doing public speaking coaching in person, or had it been over Zoom like this?
Yeah,
How
it
was
was
the
always
transition?
online because it was
Okay.
like all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a problem in terms of a lot of people have canceled on me just because you do public speaking coaching. A lot of times people want to hire you because they have an event coming up,
Right.
and events have been canceled for the foreseeable future.
Right.
But that's still work I'm probably going to get to do once those events are rescheduled, like months
Sure.
from now. So
Right.
it's not the work has been lost, but yeah, no one's really hiring me for stuff other than the people who just do like I just want to improve in public speaking, which is like a week to week thing that I
Right.
do. Other than those people, the people who have events, they've all been canceled. So I had this one guy, he had a wedding he had to do for his brother, a wedding toast, and his brother's wedding has been canceled for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future. So we don't know when it's gonna.
Right. Right. And he didn't have any interest in being
Yeah.
transitioned into somebody who would do a week to week and actually learn
I
public
mean,
speaking.
I wasn't trying to persuade him because that's not something he was interested in the first place.
Right. He wasn't right. He had no interest in it. Right. It was just
Normally when I do public speaking coaching, people fall into two camps. It's like someone who's like an average public speaker who thinks they're terrible,
yeah.
and someone who is like a really good public speaker who just thinks that they need to speak on like some sort of Martin Luther King level to get a promotion of the job. And I'm like, so just tell me what feedback you have. And I'm like, you're fine. You just need to practice. And I don't know. It's something about public speaking where people don't think it's a craft. They just think it's like a tell me what to do sort of thing.
Mm.
It's really just like anything else. It's like practicing like tennis. You just
Right.
sort of know what things to say as you practice them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, practice makes perfect. I mean that was that was part of the reason I think it's so interesting from a comedy angle, because it's so hard to practice right now, right?
Yeah,
So
you can't. And
how do you move forward?
I'm sure a lot of comedians are going to be like utter garbage when they get back because they've just not been doing stand up for 3 months. And it takes like a week or two to read, like for the muscles to like get back in form. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You still
Yeah.
know how to do comedy, but you don't know how to do comedy with optimization, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it completely makes sense. I wonder for you. I mean, you're in a sort of a suburban environment. If you just went on your front porch, with a little mic and a speaker, could you, because my friend told me in Israel that he's on a small kibbutz, and one of the ways that they're doing Saturday services is that people are just sort of speaking out from their porches, and then people are in their porches or on their street, and they're communicating like that. And we've seen groups singing in Italy off balconies. So I'm wondering if there's any way to sort of replicate that with comedy, you think?
I mean, Mark Norman literally did this in New York City.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he just went out with a stool and a mic, and he's like, "You want to hear some jokes?" And people are perturbed. But yeah, I don't think so. Not with stand-up specifically, because you have to get like a huge crowd. I knew Dave Chappelle used to do that like back in the day when he was like 19.
Yeah, in like Seattle, right?
Yeah, I personally would never attempt it, especially in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone cares. But yeah, even in like a really hip, supportive neighborhood, I still wouldn't try it because it's just gonna be like not that enjoyable for anyone,
Mm.
including me. I think with music though, I think you can do that really well with music. You can
Yeah.
really get a platform, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Everyone
not what we
has a
want,
guitar.
but yeah,
Right.
you can get a groove, yeah.
Mm. Do you think there's going to be any kind of comedy that's maybe like off the list of things, or maybe off the popular list? Like, how will comedy change when we come back? Will there be certain topics people avoid?
It's gonna be all coronavirus jokes.
It's gonna be all coronavirus. For
It's gonna,
how long? And
it's gonna be a lot of. I feel kind of bad for Chinese people.
yeah,
There's gonna be a lot of like, you know, hack comics going up there being like, "Oh," you know what I mean? Doing
yeah,
really bad Chinese accents and
yeah,
making fun of Chinese people. You know what I was observing is that this is like I think this is the only time in America that white people have been more afraid of Chinese people than they are of black people. Because normally the racial hot seat is with black people. You know what I mean? That's
sure,
the most. But
right,
this 2 month period, dude, there's a lot that Chinese people have to deal with.
right.
And, I'm actually curious, like how I wonder what Ronnie Chang's angle is gonna be. Do you know
Mm.
who he is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's funny.
yeah, he's very funny. I wonder what his angle is gonna be.
Was he on S? He was on SNL, or
He's on the Daily Show right now.
he's on the Daily Show.
The Daily Show. Who
Right.
else? I've been listening to a lot of Bobby Lee.
Yeah, Bobby Lee's hilarious.
Korean, but people are making a lot of jokes to him, and
Sure.
it's funny, man.
Has he been talking about it on his podcast?
Yeah, he has a new podcast that's thriving because Bad Friends with Andrew Santino, and
Mm.
really good. It's really good time. But yeah, I sort of enjoy. Yeah, I enjoy comedy. I think I love Chappelle and Louis and Schultz and all these comedians that thrive off of intellectual stand up, and but I also just like listening to Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino being wildly offensive. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure. You
And
know,
it's just there's a different type of talent I think that's involved in that.
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
and it's so enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to be, offensive, but it has to be funny. If it's not funny, then it's just rude.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not like normally with offensive comedy, you as an audience member go, "Wow, that's offensive," but there's such a brilliant point behind the offensive. Like the point itself has nothing to do with the offensive element.
Mm,
It's more like the offensive premise is to go into this punchline that's really just a really smart bit. You know what I mean?
mm.
Whereas with comedy that's been growing to your podcasting, it's more like, oh my god, that's so offensive. You as the audience member perceiving it that way, but it's so offensive that it's funny. It's so like over the top that you can't even be like this is racism because this is like there's no one who would even think like this. It's so imaginative in its offensiveness. You know what I mean?
I totally get what you mean.
Yeah.
I would caution against saying no one would take it as offensive because I
Oh,
mean,
plenty of people would, but
yeah,
I think
yeah. In this country, sure, certainly.
yeah, plenty of people would, but it's not like those people. People don't cancel podcasts because they don't get that big. You know what I mean? No one cares.
Right. Well, they're also independent. I mean, that's part of the thing.
Yeah.
Podcasts, you have so much freedom with a podcast. At the beginning when they were just starting out, there's kind of like this like pirate radio feel to them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm curious, like, how does podcast humor, seeing as podcasts are basically, it seems to be a comedian's best outlet for connecting to fans, still
Yeah.
being funny, working on material similarly. Why are podcasts sort of different from stand up, and how can they be translated so that people can still flex their muscles?
Well, the biggest difference is you don't notice this when you're listening to podcasts, but in stand-up, you need to have a laugh, 8 to 12 seconds, roughly. You think about it that way, but that's normally what happens. Is most stand-up hours that you see on Netflix or HBO or anything, there's a laugh beat every 8 to 12 seconds, and that's how you keep your attention. Podcast, you're really just listening because you're interested in the interviewer, you're interested in the person who's being interviewed. So that's not the main draw for keeping your attention. So it's less rhythmic, and when it's funny, it's typically funny in bursts, and then it goes to a different place. And
Right.
it can afford to not be funny for a huge amount of time. But I find podcasts tremendously entertaining, especially
Yeah.
considering a stand-up hour is going to take a really seasoned comedian, probably 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, realistically. You know what I mean? To come up with a substantial hour.
Sure.
A podcast, week to week, it's really good entertainment.
Yeah.
For an hour, and you're really laughing a lot. I love listening to Bobby Lee on anything he's on because he's hilarious on a podcast.
Yeah.
He tells stories about just like outrageous things, and it's always funny.
Yeah.
And but that's not what everyone's into. Some people are more into like Joe Rogan, which is like not as funny, but it's like very interesting guests and very interesting topics.
Right.
And so I think the main difference between podcasting and stand-up is that there's fewer laugh beats, but it's more real. Podcasts are more real.
Mm.
There's more authentic. There's like that's how you are with your friends. That's what podcasting is like, that's how things are funny with your friends. Where stand-up is like, oh wow, that's so funny and brilliant. You know what I mean? But it's so structured and well thought out. But sometimes you just want to like be funny with your friends, and that's what podcasting is a lot of times. Yeah.
Right. It's like someone just has a mic and it's you and your friends sitting
Yeah,
around,
and
you know,
saying,
right.
just making things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So
Yeah.
comedy aside, and I know I said that earlier
Yeah.
in a previous transition, but how are you on a personal level? What's it like being back with your parents, being in this suburban environment? I mean, you no
Uh,
longer.
um, yeah, I didn't realize I was just talking to my friend about this. Like, I never realized how much I miss New York as like a, not even as a comedy hub, but just like as a place I'm in a majority of the week. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I'm in New York, 4/7 of every week.
totally.
And when I'm at home, I'm sleeping most of the time. And so I didn't realize like the I don't like daylight. You know what I mean? I don't like, having to be in the same like 5 or 6 rooms
Yeah,
and like the same, like I feel like wow, I can never imagine going to prison because this is just so, not even like, you just can't live with people that long. You know what I mean?
yeah,
If you have roommates, you gotta, like, even if you like them a lot, you just can't see them all the time.
yeah.
'Cause you go, I just hate their face so
Right.
much. You know what I mean? You just see it all the time.
It's too much.
Now my parents are my roommates again, and I just, it's just all the time, and I just can't with people. It's a lot. It's I've been trying to draw. I'm just trying to be picking up hobbies left and right.
Yeah, well, it's skill season. This is the time to tack on.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you can't read whatever you want to read, watch videos on whatever you want to watch
Yeah.
videos on. You have certain limitations. You can't go to the store and get certain things, maybe, but
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, man, I've just been
it can be
it's so,
hard to motivate, though.
yeah, you have to be well, you know what else is typically when you're learning a new skill, like the way it works is like you start learning a little bit and then you share your friends like, hey, isn't this a cool thing, this new skill that I'm learning? And they're like, hey, that's so cool, keep doing it. So you have that external validation.
Yeah,
You're supposed to be internally validated, but especially when it's a brand new skill and
sure.
you're awful, you really need that stuff. And
Yep.
you don't get to do that. So I guess it's good training in your mental acumen is how you deal with training your brain to do new things. So yeah, I just been drawing pandas and not showing anyone my pandas. Be like, it's okay if this is bad. I don't need anyone to tell me it's good.
Sure.
I've just been trying to draw a lot because I've always wanted to be a good animator, but I've
Yeah,
never bothered. I always thought that was like a good. If you watch YouTube animators and stuff, they're funny, and I enjoy watching them. And
yeah,
sometimes hours of their content, and I'll be like, I bet comedians would be good at this. And the old Ricky Gervais podcast was all animated. And it
really.
was, yeah, I loved it. It was so
That's
funny.
cool.
Even Emergent, Ricky Gervais and Carl Pilkington.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some animated book summaries on YouTube, which are nice. So they're
Yeah.
walking you through the visualization of the book, and then they're also giving commentary, and it's you know
Yeah.
that could be funny with comedy too. Yeah, I could
It's
see
really,
that.
I think it's once you're a competent animator, it's really hard to get animation wrong, I think. Because as long
Mm,
as it looks clean, I'll
yeah,
watch anything animated, really.
right.
Couple of seconds. I'll watch something animated way longer than I'll watch a stand-up clip because I'm just like, it's more visually appealing.
Yeah, it's not just someone standing.
Yeah, if I watch it on Instagram, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like, this is just like, I'll just scroll through it. I'll stay on it for longer, yeah, on Instagram Discover or whatnot, just because
Mm,
it catches my eye. Bright, it's literally like it's like bright colors are better
right.
than a dimly lit room with people. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And we're also it's new. It's fresh. It's
yeah,
a new way to express one's comedy one's comedy self.
right. Yeah, that's true.
Well, Akash, it's been great talking with you.
What are you looking forward to, man? I enjoyed myself. It's always
Yeah,
nice to talk
I'm
to you.
glad. I'm glad you did. You shared some insight, quite a bit of insight on the comedy world and what it's been like in these times. I hope you maybe consider doing your own podcast kind of thing or this comedy animation because those both seem like great outlets, certainly.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I will. We'll keep in touch, and I'll see you on the next Rutgers Comedy Club call.
Yeah, man. I'll see you.
Peace, brother. Of
Peace, Ruben. Thanks so much.
course.